I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Tuesday.
No snow today. That's good news.
Bill, I'm up in the mountains. There's no snow anywhere. Let me tell you that much.
That's a little spooky.
It is dry.
You know, I was actually reading something I ran across. It was totally different feed that I was running through this weekend. But I ran across this piece that a guy was writing out of Wyoming. And a portion of it was he was talking about how there's a lack of snow in Wyoming. And he was focused on something else. But one of his laments was that all of his snowmobiling friends said, yeah, it's great if you get up above 9,000 feet. Mm-hmm. And he's like, wait, their highest mountain peak there is 10,000 feet. He's like, normally the snow is much lower. And he's like, we're operating in the mountains with 1,000 vertical feet of available, terrain for snowmobiles. He's like, this is crazy. He's like, yeah, he was lamenting some of the lack of the snow and things like that you were talking about. I can't believe it's that dry down there too. That's not good.
Yeah, it's wild. I'm out in Durango this morning. We'll be addressing the Southwest Republican Women's Club after the show. So I came down to night before, going to do the show and then hang out and with the good folks of the Southwest Republican Women's Club and then head on back. But it is dry out here. Definitely very dry, Southwest Colorado right now. Well, how do you think the Minneapolis police chief is doing? Well, here's Darren Weekly's comment. He's absolutely unfit to be the CEO of a law enforcement agency. He's a disgrace to the profession. Whoa, strong words from Sheriff Darren Weekly of Douglas County. He's going to join us next to give us an analysis on how the Minneapolis police chief is handling all this. But first up is the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. It is Tuesday, 25 and clear in Denver. Expecting a high of 52 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, Tina Peters has been moved to another housing unit after she was involved in an incident Sunday at La Vista Correctional Facility. The former Mesa County clerk posted on X that she was attacked in a closet by another inmate and was trying to defend herself. She was rolling out a cart into a closet. She backs into the closet, and then a woman comes in and tries to pull the cart away. The door is blocking, so you can't really see what happens seconds after that. And then they exit out of the closet, and Peters has her hand on the inmate's right arm, and Tina, her other hand on her neck, on the woman's neck, and you can see in the video on Jeff's X account, or actually on our website or on the live feed today, it looks like she's saying, hey, look, back off. Stop messing with me. You're messing with the wrong person. Corrections spokeswoman Alondra Gonzalez Garcia says Peters was moved to another housing unit while the investigation continues. So hopefully it doesn't escalate to this.
See what you're made of, huh?
Man, those movies with the prisons, with the women, they get pretty violent. So who knows? Tina is not messing around. Hopefully they have fixed that and she is safe in that facility. Coloradans taking legal action after contaminated fuel was delivered to dozens of gas stations last week. State regulators say gas contaminated with diesel was sent to retailers from the H.F. Sinclair terminal in Adams County on January 7th and 8th. The state has received over 800 complaints about the damage caused by the contaminated fuel. Lawsuits were filed last week in Denver and Adams County, and attorneys hope to turn those cases into class actions so they can represent multiple clients. Businesses in the Boulder area reporting heavy losses after Xcel Energy cut power for several days last month. Hosea Rosenberg, owner and chef of 2 Boulder restaurants, says that he estimates he lost about $100,000 in sales and spoiled food between the 2 locations during the outages.
There's just a lot of things that work against restaurants. And the one thing we should count on is our utilities. But if something happened like this every few months or even once a year, I don't think we would be able to stay in business.
Xcel implemented power shutoffs on December 17th and 19th to reduce the risk of wildfires, of course, due to the high winds. The Boulder Chamber of Commerce recently surveyed area businesses and found that nearly 250 were negatively affected by the outages. DJT heading to Switzerland today for the World Economic Forum in Davos, with the dispute over Greenland looming large.
Asked by reporters last night about how he plans to handle in-person pushback from European allies, Trump said he's not anticipating any major problems.
Well, I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They have to have this done.
Trump has threatened tariffs on allies that oppose his Greenland plans, and the EU is considering retaliatory tariffs. The issue may distract from security agreements for Ukraine, originally thought to be Trump's main contribution at Davos this year. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
National championship game last night. Undefeated Indiana leading 17-14 in the fourth. 4th and 5 from the 13. They have to get this first down because Miami looked like they were about to come back on the Indiana Hoosiers, and they go for it instead of kicking a field goal. Gutsy move, and the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, takes the snap.
He's going to take off and run. Mendoza weaves his way first and goal, diving toward the end zone. Touchdown!
Wow.
That's why he won the Heisman Trophy.
Absolutely. Wow. One of the greatest plays, if not the greatest play made by a Heisman Trophy winner. 16-0. Just incredible what they did. Here's head coach Curt Cignetti.
We found a way. It's credit to our guys' resiliency to find a way to get that done. It's a great thing. Indiana winning the national championship 2 years into our tenure.
It's just unbelievable what he was able to do with one of the worst, if not the worst, major college football programs in the country. An Indiana judge and his wife recovering after someone shot them in their home on Sunday afternoon. Superior Court Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife Kimberly reportedly went to answer the door in Lafayette, where their home is in Indiana. Someone knocked on the door and said that they had the couple's dog before opening fire. The shooter is still on the loose, and the FBI has joined the investigation. That is crazy. The Avs beat the Caps last night 5-2. Lakers at the Nuggets tonight at the arena. Late tip at 8 o'clock. And preparation and game planning continues at Broncos headquarters as they get ready for the Patriots in the AFC Championship game at Mile High. Always exciting when a conference championship game comes to your city. 23 in Parker, 22 in Arvada, 24 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Bill on a Tuesday. Blake Wilson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Morning skies will be clear, and temps will start off in the lower to mid-20s. Then with sunny skies, should get back to the mid-50s Tuesday afternoon. Westerly winds at 20 to 30 miles an hour. Lows Tuesday night in the mid-20s and partly cloudy. Middle and upper 40s Wednesday and Thursday. We'll keep it fair and mainly dry, with lows falling to the upper teens, low 20s. Cold front may bring some snow showers late Friday. Highs low 30s. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy, I'm always intrigued by these law enforcement officers that go to work in places like Portland, San Francisco, Minneapolis, where you very much have to take on the role of almost being like anti-law enforcement. It's kind of intriguing to me. This guy, the Minneapolis police chief, Brian O'Hara, came from Newark to Minneapolis. He's the first prominent or permanent chief appointed following all the George Floyd riots and all that happened in 2020. He was appointed in September of 2022. And he's made some comments about ICE that are at best eyebrow-raising, but seem to embrace this kind of anti-law enforcement mentality while serving in law enforcement. And I saw a comment by Darren Weekly, sheriff of Douglas County, doing a fantastic job. But Sheriff Weekly said that he's absolutely unfit to be the CEO of a law enforcement agency. The Minneapolis police chief is a disgrace to the profession. And I outreached to him and I said, Sheriff, love to have you on to talk about this because I do find these guys intriguing, and he joins us now. The sheriff of Douglas County, Darren Weekly. Good morning, Sheriff. Thank you for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. Thanks for having me.
So you strong words for the police chief of Minneapolis. Tell us about him.
Yeah, the reason I say he's unfit for public office is because when you get to the chief of police level or a sheriff level, that I could potentially be out of a job. And that's the same thing for a police chief. When a police chief gets to that level, they have to understand everything that goes with it. Now, obviously, the big difference is a sheriff is elected by the people of their county, and a police chief is appointed either by the mayor, city council, and typically police chiefs don't have the latitude to make decisions for public safety the way that most of them would want to.
Yeah, we missed you. It broke up there right at the very beginning. Make your first comments again, maybe the first 3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm driving. The reason I say that he's a disgrace to his office is because he is not doing what he thinks is in the best interest of his city. At least I can't imagine that.
I think this is a conspiracy.
Enforcement agency. Am I cutting out again?
Yeah, but we know we know you cover Douglas County, which can get a little rural sometimes.
The silly part about it is every time you're like, he's unfit for public office because of twice.
Well, here's some of the comments that he's made with regards to ICE. He said that the shooting of Renee Good was predictable and entirely preventable, that the law enforcement officer in that situation violated basic steps of law enforcement training. You don't put yourself in the path of the vehicle. Related to ICE agents pulling the woman out of the car, I don't know if you guys saw this, but he said it makes, I can't even say what he said actually on radio, but he said, to see men doing that to a woman who's disabled, it makes me really mad, in another word. If cops worked for me, they'd have a problem right now. It seems like he's regularly putting himself in a position, Sheriff, of speaking against what federal law enforcement's having to do. Minneapolis has decided they're really not going to help protect these federal law enforcement. So he's in a position where he's allowing these violent protesters to impede lawful federal operations. These ICE agents are having blocks of ice thrown at them. They're having their cars interfered with. And when ICE reacts to them, well, then he criticizes the law enforcement all over again. It doesn't seem like he stands first with law enforcement. It seems he's like constantly a political actor responding to the people in his community that are some of the worst offenders. Your thoughts, Sheriff?
Well, again, he's appointed. He's not elected by the people. So he's doing, in my opinion, he is doing what is expected of him by his mayor, by his city council, by his city manager. He's doing such a horrible job that the federal government may have to come in and restore order to his city. Now, I understand that a chief of police can't be, immigration enforcement. But at what point do you stand in the way from property damage and people getting hurt in your city? At what point do you get in, stand in the gap to protect your community? That's what he's failing to doing, and it seems like he's telling his officers to stand down and let it happen. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, to put federal agents in harm's way like that is unconscionable.
Sheriff
Go
Wheatley,
ahead, Bill.
Sheriff Wheatley, one of the things that I think is really important there that I heard coming from you that is kind of a perspective that I think is very valid and something that people that are supporting some of the ICE protests should consider. That given the physical altercations between the protesters and ICE agents, regardless of whom you feel is responsible for any altercations, that there's a role for local police to be there to make sure that those altercations don't happen. Again, regardless who's responsible, we're not going to sit here and I'm just saying, I'm not taking a side and saying it is always the ICE agents doing it, is always the protesters doing it, or what that is. The core that I'm hearing from Sheriff Wheatley out of Douglas County is that regardless of who is doing the thing, the police should be there to maintain law and order and to make sure that nobody is getting hurt during the ICE actions and during the protest at the time. Is that fair?
Yeah, everybody has the right to peaceably assemble. Everybody has the right for their First Amendment and to give their opinion. What they don't have the right to do is to hurt other people, to block traffic, you name it. And it seems like, obviously the Minneapolis Police Department has been told to stand down. Why somebody would want to be a Minneapolis police officer is beyond me. That they've clearly lost control.
That's Sheriff Darren Weekleys, the sheriff of Douglas County, making comments with regards to the Minneapolis police chief, saying that he's wholly unfit to be in that position and creating serious problems for the community, saying he's a disgrace to the profession. Talk to us specifically about that notion of being a disgrace to the profession. What were you thinking?
As the CEO of the agency, you have a responsibility to protect your agency. You have a responsibility to do the right things to protect your officers. And he essentially has stood down and taken direction from his superiors instead of keeping his community safe. And again, once you get to the CEO level, that's not an option. If he had any sense of pride in his profession, he would resign his position. And again, he is putting his citizens, as well as those agents, in harm's way by doing nothing to prevent the violence and property damage that's going on there.
No, in many ways, it seems like these actions by the mayor, by the governor, and by the police chief of Minneapolis are making things worse, that they're almost forcing Trump's hands. A great argument that I've heard made is, why don't you see these types of interference activities taking place across the country? Are they only doing ICE raids in Minneapolis, for instance? Of course not. But because of the political positions of the governor, of the mayor, and of the police chief, they're almost making things worse and ultimately forcing the hand of the president to have to send in federal troops. It's the exact opposite of policing a community well. It is taking steps to make the community more unsafe in order to appease the most radical left-wing anti-police aspect of your political base. And the president seems to be the only one in the room saying we can't allow our communities to do this. They're almost forcing the hand in my perspective of the president. Your response, Sheriff?
They've got to restore order in that city, or this is going to continue. People are going to continue to get hurt. Eventually, this all has to come to a head, and I'm very worried about that and how that's going to unfold. because I dread to think of people getting hurt trying to restore law and order. And again, that's on the police chief for failing to do it himself.
Mm-hmm. Sheriff, look, you and I have run into each other in personal capacities inside of a church. I know you're a man of faith. You saw what happened inside the church in Minneapolis. What were your thoughts as a law enforcement officer when you saw that?
I think it's inexcusable. Can't we? We obviously people have different political views, different political perspectives, but that just crosses a line that should never be crossed. Can we all just try to get along? And we may disagree respectfully, but not resort to violence, not resort to storming a church. We just seem to have lost all civility. At least the fringe groups certainly have. Can we bring it back together as a country?
Yeah, I think a lot of people saw that, good Americans on either political perspective, and just said that you guys are crossing a line here. You have little kids sitting in the pews crying. You had one guy, we played his audio on our show yesterday, berating what appears to be 15-year-old girls sitting in a pew, trying to intimidate them. You do not have a constitutional right to free speech and protest on somebody else's private property. Just because it's a church and might be open to the public to attend doesn't necessarily mean it's public land for you to protest on. Walmart, for instance, is open to the public, but you can't go have a protest in the middle of Walmart and intimidate shoppers. So it seems like Don Lemon clearly doesn't understand the Constitution and is going to face some criticism there. Sheriff, I want to ask you briefly about the lawsuit. You're suing Governor Polis with regards to some of these U visas. Can you tell us a little bit about this lawsuit?
Yeah, the lawsuit essentially, there's a couple different prongs to it. It essentially contradicts existing state law. We have a lot of different cases that involve migrants, and in those cases, we are working with federal authorities. We can't share information about their immigration status with those federal authorities. So the law is in conflict. And then in terms of the U visas, which I personally have approved myself when I was a captain, the threshold for what meets that criteria is essentially we are being forced to give potentially inaccurate information on those U visas. So all we are looking to do is get clarification from the law. I've been accused of all kinds of horrible things by certain people. This has absolutely nothing to do with race. What it has everything to do is truth in these legal documents, as well as the conflict with existing state law. And so that's what we're trying to get resolution on.
That's Sheriff of Douglas County, Darren Weekly. Sheriff, you've been very generous with your time. Just another question real quick. I know you said to me one time that 80% of the people in your jails aren't even from Douglas County. The position I feel like you and George Brockler have been put in is to clean up the weak on crime policies that pervade other cities around you, that pervade the state as well. These lawmakers down at the state capitol, it always, from my perspective, seems like they're criminal first, not victim first. So talk to us about the position you're in, having to deal with weak on crime policies all around the Denver metro area and trying to keep your community safe, where 80% of the people in your jail aren't from our community in Douglas County.
Well, and the people that are in jail are the worst of the worst. Most people are now getting PR bonds on most crimes, depending on their criminal history and a lot of other factors that go into it. It's never been more difficult to keep legitimate criminals behind bars. And that's because of the quote-unquote criminal justice reform. So if there's no consequences to committing crimes and these criminals know they're going to be right back out on the street, where's the incentive not to commit crimes? The other issue that we have is a lot of felonies. Many felonies were reduced to misdemeanor levels. which is also problematic. And many of those are drug crimes as well as property crimes. And so, again, when you're reducing the penalty level and you're also reducing the ability to incarcerate criminals, you're making all of Colorado less safe, not just Douglas County. So Douglas County, we're still essentially playing defense, and we're making arrests where we can, and hopefully finding these offenders before they commit crimes in my community.
Sheriff Darren Weekly, Governor Jared Polis gave us final state of the state down at the Colorado State Capitol earlier this week or late last week, saying that he's made Colorado safer. Do you think Governor Polis under his tenure made Colorado safer?
Well, we're on the radio, so you didn't just see me roll my eyes. But, no, he has not. He has no clue, and I think he's way out of touch with the everyday Coloradans that are having to deal with the crime epidemic in this state. I don't care if you live in the Denver metro area, if you live outside the metro area, rural area. Everybody can see that crime has filtered out of the big city and is starting to affect everyday Coloradans, and it's not good for the good. Whether you're talking stolen cars, vehicle break-ins, burglaries, the sanctuary policies of our state. I go down to the Capitol a lot during the legislative session, and this year is going to be no exception. Our legislature is continuing to water down the law and make things much more difficult for law-abiding Coloradans. We need to shift this state. We need to get it going in the right direction, and public safety should be paramount for every Coloradan, so vote appropriately.
Yeah, and as we've seen down at the state capitol, in all these battles, they continually side with criminals. People go, Jeff, you're too brash to say they're criminal first. No, they are criminal first because you're either community safety first or you're criminal first. Who gets the priority? And they continually, especially these socialists that are now taking control of the state capitol, siding first with criminals over the general public, and it's creating a problem. And I'm just so impressed with people like George and Darren that are trying to keep their community safe in the midst of all these challenges. Sheriff, you're doing an absolutely fantastic job. We're proud. Thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show this morning.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, hey, guys, I want to add one thing. That is why we are going to start going with more ballot measures that people will see in the November election to restore law and order for this state. And thank you guys for having me.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah,
and he's exactly right. There'll be some ballot initiatives coming from some good people at, I think, the Common Sense Institute. No, that's Advanced Colorado. Advanced Colorado will be coming up with some of those ballot initiatives. But, that's how you have to do it. Because in the progressive mind, the law and order justice system is not something that's equally applicable to people. That Marxist worldview of oppressor versus oppressed feeds into their perspective. And so if you are in prison, well, you've been oppressed by somebody until you're a political opponent, and gets into the old adage, show me the person, I'll show you the crime, that comes from the Soviet days, where they'll use the law enforcement apparatus to go after their political opponents. But then when it applies to the general public, that oppressor versus oppressed mindset fits in. But strong words from the sheriff of Douglas County regarding the Minneapolis police chief, saying he's absolutely unfit to be the CEO of law enforcement. He is a disgrace to the profession. Do you agree? Is the Minneapolis police chief creating part of these problems that we're facing in Minneapolis by not being willing to send law enforcement to work with ICE and essentially turning these protesters loose? Or is he a civil rights activist that's trying to fight against the oppression of the federal government? Give us a call. Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. Bill, any thoughts on that interview?
No, I liked what he had to say. I liked the idea of The police should be there to stop those confrontations regardless of whom, that they are there to keep the community safe. It also resonated with me that he said here in Colorado, it's never been more difficult to keep the criminals behind bars. I think that is something that he should turn into a campaign slogan, and that certain members that are running for office should use that. I think that is very telling and gives an interesting insight into challenges that he's dealing with. But yeah, I can see why he's upset he's elected versus the Minneapolis police chief being appointed by the mayor. As Joan from Lakewood pointed out, the police chief has to stay in the good graces of the mayor or they're out of a job. And so is this the actual standing of the Minneapolis police chief, or is this more something playing politics, that these are directives from the mayor? Because I do think that Sheriff Weekly has a wonderful critique about the police department being there to keep the entire community safe, and regardless of who you think is responsible, stopping the property damage and stopping the physical altercations does need to be a priority, and that he's not seeing that. And that's why he's saying the Minneapolis police chief should leave. And he's got a point, that you're there to protect public order at some level, and it's not being done. And again, regardless of who you think is responsible for the altercations going on, the police being there, in all likelihood, would stop many of them. It's a great point.
No. Join the conversation. Would love to hear from you. Again, the phone line, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking lots of things law enforcement related this morning. Tina Peters in a scuffle while in prison, claiming she was assaulted. Does the video reflect that? Darren Weekly, Sheriff of Douglas County, joining us to talk about what's happening in Minneapolis, saying that the police chief of Minneapolis is a disgrace to the profession. Feel free to join any aspect of this conversation. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Campbell Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's go to the phone lines. Dwayne in Divide. Good morning, Dwayne. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. But it's now Dwayne in Daytona, so we'll let that work from there.
Yeah, all right.
So yeah, we're doing
permanently. Is this a permanent move?
Oh no. It's part of the new job that I'm doing, and we'll be racing a car in the LMP prototype. That's what I did a little bit last year, and we're going to be in the 24-hour race at Daytona.
Ooh, nice.
So much fun, dude. That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I got a man who's handing me checks that I go, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be working for you.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. But I it's one of those things I get to experiment with things. Bill knows that I built a Viper motor that was running real well, and through harmonics and other things, my engineering has finally come apart. That we ran a race car for 7,000 miles and never had to crack the heads. It ran all season with absolutely never being open. Oh, yeah. Well, and we were running at 180 to 220 almost all the time. Jeez. Anyway, so I would like to see the mayor of Minnesota sit there and tell Don Lemon to get the F out. And to sit there and go into a church is absolutely horrific. And he needs to be made an example, because these people are just, flowing through like mold and attacking everybody. Last I saw, ICE was a legitimate profession. You're paid by the government to do the one thing: remove illegal people. And they're not just taking up people who are, being picked up on the streets and being thrown in vans and being taken away in the dark of night. So I say that. And Jeff, two things, please. I'm sorry to say this to you. When you say jarhead, that inflicts pain on every Marine, because no Marine would ever respect the bag of ooze that is in the governor's mansion and soon to be released, one. And two, come on. Marines are much smarter than that. They only eat a few crayons as opposed to bullets. Now, as far as Tina Peter goes, he has got to let her out for his legacy, because he let out a murderer from the semi-truck that killed all those people, and he didn't spend any time. So for him to get anywhere, to sit there and think about going over to Washington, D.C. at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, he's going to have to release Tina Peters on a full pardon and all. Otherwise, his chances of Washington, D.C. are just the same as my getting a date with somebody without an Adam's apple. Zilch. So it's just going to be one of those things.
Dwayne, when does he potentially release her? Is this something that he's doing as he goes out the door, or would you advise him to do it sooner?
My advice would be to get her out. She's being attacked, supposedly, in prison right now. People are going after her because she's a target. Anybody who gets notoriety from hitting her is going to be in a position to stand around and look like the king chicken there in the situation in prison. So if he's smart, he releases her no later than May 1st. Well, but if he chickens out, I would say he'll do it just before he walks out the door.
The thing for me is that it seems like your justification is because she is being attacked in prison. And just to use the same example, if Sean Puffy Combs is attacked a couple of times in prison, should he get released? Same thing with Ghislaine Maxwell. Should she be released if she's attacked in prison?
Well, my situation isn't the attack. Mine is the fact that he let a multi-murderer semi-truck driver out early. And if you can do that for a multi-murdering semi-truck driver, Tina Peters can come out. I know you're not a fan of her being released early, but if he wants to have any justification and sit there and say that he's middle of the road and everything else, Tina's got to come out. That has got to be his political
I appreciate
situation
where
that
you're
he
thinking
has
of
to
this,
face.
Dwayne. Now, what about the idea that maybe he doesn't have any future in national politics? I mean, Jeff and I have talked about at the last DNC, he did not get a prominent speaking role. He was given a couple of minutes with a shtick where they handed him a book and said, here, go read this funny poem, and then get the hell off the stage. He wasn't in a highlighted position. And I'm not sure he can crack above the current front runners in the Dems. So if he's not looking for that national office, doesn't matter.
Oh, he's wanting that national office. He'll take Newsom out without any problem whatsoever. And Kamala's not even a viable candidate. I mean, he can sit there and point to Colorado and make his claims on everything. You and I and Jeff can sit there and say, and maybe you want to go on to the second page on your comment. But as far as him wanting to go to Washington, D.C., he wants it. And he's got dollars behind him. He could self-fund.
Yeah, he could. But the thing for me is, do you think he has... okay, now let's just say put him on the debate stage, put him on those type of town halls. Do you think Polis has any shot at getting above Newsom? And that's the thing, is Newsom is polished. He's slick. And that's why I don't give Polis as much chance as I would in other times, because we've seen that sort of, the charisma vacuum backfire before.
I can go with some of that, but like this weekend with the Broncos against the New England Patriots, they're bringing a guy in off the street, and it's like, this is a football. We hold it in our hands, and we elevate it through the air. And they're going to sit there and work on him. I mean, he's got the money to become polished. He can buy the right PR firms to sit there and look more palatable to people. I really believe
Dwayne,
that he may not win the result, but I think he's got a chance to sit there and become a brighter star.
I think Polis wants it. I think that's a fair assessment. But when you look at how these pale, male, and stale Colorado Democrats do on the national stage, because remember, Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper both ran for president. Neither of them got a single percentage point of support. When they hit the national stage, people are just like, golly, these guys are boring. And you see it, especially in that State of the State. That was 90 minutes, and I got maybe 3 minutes of clips out of it. So he's a boring Boulder nerd that I don't think is going to make it. But the biggest challenge he faces, and I think he is fair enough with himself to assess it this way, that when he got a call from Kim Kardashian, he commuted the sentence of a guy who killed 4 people by being reckless, even murderous, with his truck crashing into them on I-70. He's going to keep Tina Peters, who's never done a violent thing in her life, against somebody that wasn't actually attacking her. Then I don't, never convicted on any of that. I think he has to come to terms with himself. Dwayne, I appreciate the phone call. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
That's Dwayne from Daytona. Best of luck out there, man. A 24-hour race.
Yeah,
that is wild.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Billy, do we have Aaron from Denver?
Yes, we do. He's with us right now.
Good morning, Aaron. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Oh, well, Jeff, listening to the Douglas sheriff there, he's absolutely right. The sheriff from the city of Minneapolis, if I was him, I would resign. I would just get the heck out of that taxpayer-funded job, try to do something else with my life and move on. I mean, even though he was appointed by the mayor of Minneapolis, he's just a disgrace. Being mayor of Minneapolis, and of course you got the dumb governor of Minnesota. So I mean, both of them are such a disgrace. And if he was smart, he would resign, get the hell out of the job, and move on. I mean, the whole thing is such a mess. And then you have Don Lemon being leading a bunch of stormtroopers into a place of worship, a sanctuary. I mean, that's why you go to church, so you can get away from the real world for a couple of hours. But of course, these morons, these leftist nutbags, want to invade a church and disrupt the peace there. I mean, it just never ceases amazing when you deal with the diabolical, sinister, dark side, dumb donkeys in this country. And we got them, in this state, and they're everywhere in the country. It's just like a bad version of COVID-19 virus. And man, I gotta find a cure in this insanity that's currently going on in this country. It just has to stop. And you're right about Jeff, about Tina Peters, the double standard in his hypocrisy. I think she got what she deserves. But if you're willing to pardon a truck driver who killed a bunch of people because of Kim Kardashian, then you gotta let Tina Peters go. I mean, it's just, the double standards is just outrageous. And one more thing, Jeff, is it a felony or a misdemeanor to steal a car in the state of Colorado, or did the dumb donkeys finally woke up and changed the law from a misdemeanor to a felony to steal your car? What you got, Jeff and Bill?
Yeah, with regards to numbers, I don't know, because I remember Phil Weiser saying that it takes a few car thefts for him to finally pay attention to what you're doing out there.
The first three were free, according to Phil. Like a punch card at Subway.
Well, I just know some loser tried to steal my car, and luckily this was during the COVID-19 insanity that was going on in the state. And someone actually tried to steal my car, and they caused over $2,000 of damage inside my car, and because my car was smarter than the loser that tried to steal my car. So I'm still kind of digging because these dumb donkeys, they're soft on crime, currently going on under the dome. And of course I don't know if they still fixed the issue. If you turn that to be a nutbag and you release back into the population as a nutbag, so I committed a crime as a nutbag, and you release me back into the population to commit more crimes as a nutbag, and that's something the horde of dumb donkeys, they need to resolve that currently under the dome in downtown Denver. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
Aaron, I love it. I always appreciate the call. That's Aaron from Denver. Thanks so much. In many ways, Minneapolis has fallen into what conservatives always claim progressives do. They hate Christians. They want to interrupt what they're doing with their church services. They're pro-crime, criminal first, and they're attacking ICE agents. Is this what you have in Minneapolis? Kind of the penultimate progressive city where you can't worship, you're going to be harassed there, and if you're a federal law enforcement agent, they're going to throw ice blocks at you. Well, give us a call. Join the conversation. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Campos Law text line at 720-819-5115. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Tina Peters in a scuffle in prison, claiming she was assaulted. Is it time to get her out of there? Or is this a much ado about nothing? Let's go to the phone lines. Francis and Golden. Good morning, Francis. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, gang. Hey, I saw the little video. It's very scratchy of the Tina Peters thing, and it looked to me like Tina just kind of flipped out, like she was moving some cart and some other inmate tried to pull it back a little bit, and then Tina grabbed her by the throat. It looked opposite of being assaulted, but regardless, it's time for Polis to just give her some sort of a release and make it super duper conditional. As a parolee, she can be subject to multiple conditions. I don't want her leaving the jurisdiction. I think she should be ankle monitored. I think she has to be not able to speak in public about any of her crimes. And for that matter, I mean, I'd say don't let her speak about it at all as a condition of parole. And just because
Can
she
you
wants
do
to
that?
be the...
Isn't that is that a free speech violation?
Yes. You can, no, it isn't. Look, when you're a criminal, you lose a lot of rights. You can't vote. When you're a felon, she won't be able to vote. I mean, nor should she be able to vote. But here's the deal. I think you can place conditions on that. I'd defer to your friend at 1st and 14th, but because criminal law ain't my jive. But you can put conditions on people, as I understand it, and it can be specific to the charge. She wants to be. Look, the one thing we know for darn sure about Tina Peters is that she wants to be the sweetheart of the kooky rodeo. And we don't let her do that if she's out, period. I don't need her trying to be a martyr. I don't need her lying about what happened. And we do know she will do that. She's done it before. We do know she'll flee the jurisdiction. She's done it before. We do know she kicked the cop. She's done that before. She'll do all of these things and claim martyrdom on all of it.
Francis,
Francis
Golden, appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Yeah, running out of time.
We'll continue the conversation. Feel free to join us, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.